For most of human history, your money was chained to a rock, not a metaphor, a literal rule. The cash in your pocket wasn't really money. It was a receipt, a paper claim on something heavy and unprintable, locked away in a vault you'd never see. And here's the strange part. That brutal limit worked. For centuries, prices barely moved. Governments couldn't quietly cheat. Then, almost overnight, every country on Earth tore the chain off. And they did it on purpose. We're here to ask the simple question behind everything worth anything. Why money? So here was the deal. A government promised that its paper money could always be swapped for a fixed amount of gold. And that one promise changed everything. Because gold is rare and you cannot print it, a government can't just conjure money out of nothing. To spend more, it needs more gold. No gold, no new money. The whole money supply, handcuffed to a metal in a basement. That sounds like a limit. And it was. But for a very long time, people saw that limit as the whole point. Here's what it bought them. The great gift of the gold standard was discipline. Look at what prices did over the long run. In countries on gold, the price of bread, of cloth, of a day's work stayed remarkably steady, across whole lifetimes. A British pound bought about the same goods in 1900 as it did 2 centuries earlier. 200 years with almost no inflation. Your grandfather could bury money in a field, and your grandchildren could dig it up, still worth the same. The reason was that simple chain. A government couldn't quietly print to pay its bills, because every note had to be backed by metal it really had. The gold didn't just sit in the vault, it tied the politicians' hands. And that changed how power itself behaved. When money is honest, a saver is safe. The coins in your tin don't quietly lose value while you sleep, because no one can flood the world with new ones. There is no hidden tax. A king who wanted a war couldn't simply print it. He had to find the gold first, tax it, borrow it, or win it. The metal said no when the politicians could not say it themselves. For centuries, that was the deal people trusted. It was, in a strange way, a money that ruled its rulers. Instead of the other way around, but a chain that ties the government's hands has a darker side. Because sometimes, you want the hands free. Picture a sudden crisis, a bank panic, a war, a depression. In moments like that, an economy needs more money, fast, to lend to banks before they collapse, to keep people working, to pay for survival. But under a gold standard, the government can't simply create that money. It is forbidden. The amount of money is locked to the amount of metal, and you cannot mine gold in an afternoon. So the same rule that stops a government cheating in good times also stops it rescuing anyone in bad times. The discipline becomes a cage, and the worst possible moment to be locked in a cage is during a collapse. History was about to prove exactly that. The Great Depression was that test, and the gold standard failed it. When the crisis hit in 1929, the countries chained to gold could not loosen their money to fight it. So prices and wages didn't just fall. They collapsed and stayed down. Factories shut. Farms were abandoned. 1 in 4 workers in America had no job at all. Then came the strange evidence. Some countries broke the chain early. Britain cut the link in 1931. And here's the pattern economists found again and again. The moment a country let go of gold, its recovery began. The pattern was almost too clean to believe. The countries that left gold first recovered first. The ones that clung on longest, France and the so-called gold bloc, suffered the deepest and the longest. Same crisis. Different chains. And the ones who cut the chain soonest healed soonest. One historian gave the whole system a name that stuck: golden fetters. A fetter is a shackle, because beautiful chains are still chains. The very metal that had protected money for centuries was now quietly drowning it. So why didn't everyone just leave gold the moment it hurt? Because leaving felt like cheating, like a country breaking its word. For generations, gold had meant honesty, and a paper money tied to nothing sounded like a recipe for chaos. They had seen money die before. They had watched other nations print until a loaf of bread cost a wheelbarrow of cash. They were terrified of a world with no anchor at all. So they were trapped between two fears: a gold standard that could strangle them in a crisis, and a free money that might spiral out of control. And after the Second World War, the world tried to do something clever. It tried to have it both ways. If you're enjoying this, a quick subscribe means you won't miss the next one. Now, back to it. So, in 1944, in a New Hampshire town called Bretton Woods, the major nation sat down to redesign money itself. They knew the rigid old gold standard had helped wreck the 30s, but feared a world with no anchor. So they built a compromise. Only one currency would be tied directly to gold, the US dollar, fixed at $35 an ounce. Every other currency would be tied to the dollar. So the world still stood on gold, but now through America. The dollar became the middleman for the planet's money. An elegant deal. But putting one country in the middle handed it an impossible job, and hidden inside was a flaw that would take one generation to crack. Here is the flaw. And it's beautiful in a cruel way. The whole world wanted dollars, to trade, to save, to back their own money. But to get more dollars, America had to send more out than it took back, year after year. That's the only way they reach foreign hands. The problem? Every dollar shipped abroad was a paper claim on American gold. So the more the world used the dollar, the more claims piled up against a pile of gold that barely grew. An economist named Robert Triffin saw it coming and warned about it, all the way back in 1960. And here was the trap he saw. The more America flooded the world with dollars, the more the global economy could grow. But the less believable its promise to swap each dollar for gold became. Success and failure were the same act. To keep the world supplied, the dollar had to spread everywhere. And the more it spread, the more claims piled up against gold that didn't. The system could only grow by quietly going broke. That's not a bug you can patch with better rules. That's the design itself. And a design that broken always meets the same end. And then the theory turned real. Through the 1960s, America spent heavily. The war in Vietnam, ambitious new programs at home. To pay for it all, more dollars poured out than ever. Foreign governments didn't like the math. The US did not have enough gold to honor all the dollars now floating around the globe. So one country called the bluff. France, under de Gaulle, began shipping its dollars back across the Atlantic, demanding the real gold in return. Other nations lined up to do the same. And once a few cash and a promise that can't be kept, everyone rushes for the door. The American gold was walking out of the vault, one shipment at a time. Watch how fast it drained. In 1950, the United States held about $23 billion of gold, the largest hoard the world had ever seen. By the summer of 1971, that hoard had fallen to roughly $10 billion, more than half of it gone. And the foreign dollar claims stacked against it were now far larger than the gold that remained. The promise at the center of the whole system, that a dollar could always become gold, was now a promise America physically could not keep. Everyone could see the vault running low. The only question left was who would say it out loud, and when. Then it ended in a single evening. On Sunday, August 15, 1971, President Nixon went on national television. He interrupted a popular show to speak to the country. And in the middle of the speech, he closed the gold window. The United States would no longer trade dollars for gold. The chain, the one that had bound money to metal for centuries, was cut. Nixon called it temporary. It was never restored. In that moment, the dollar stopped being a claim on something you could hold. It became a piece of paper worth exactly what everyone agreed, and not 1 ounce more. The whole world's money was now backed by nothing but trust. So what did the world trade away that night? It's a deal with two sides, and you have to hold both at once. On one side, we lost the discipline. Once money was no longer chained to gold, governments could create it freely. And they did. Look at prices after 1971. The centuries of flat money ended. A permanent climb began, the inflation that has shrunk every currency since. But on the other, we gained flexibility. When a crisis hits now, a crash, a pandemic, central banks can act. They flood the system to stop a depression, which gold forbade in the 30s. That is the trade. We gave up a money that disciplined governments and accepted one that obeys them. This is the deal we still live under, every day. Picture a simple scale. On one side sits discipline, stable prices, governments that can't cheat, savings that hold their value. On the other sits flexibility, the power to print, to rescue, to respond, at the cost of slow, endless inflation. The gold standard pinned that scale to discipline. In 1971, we let it swing hard the other way. Neither side is free. A money that can't bend will break you in a crisis. A money that bends too easily robs you while you sleep. There's no perfect setting, only the choice of which pain you'd rather live with. And in 1971, without a vote, the whole world chose. And here's why a decision from 1971 still matters to you today. You weren't asked. Most people alive now weren't even born. But you live inside that choice every day. That slow leak in your bank account. The way the same money buys a little less each year. That isn't a glitch. It is the price of the freedom the world bought in '71. And the flip side is just as real. The next time the economy nearly collapses and the government rushes money in to keep people in their jobs and the lights on. That rescue only exists because we cut the chain. You got both, the slow leak and the lifeboat. They are the same decision seen from two sides. So, why did we abandon the gold standard? Not by accident. We abandoned it because a chain that protects you in calm times can strangle you in a storm. We traded a money that ruled its rulers. For a money its rulers rule. And the price of that freedom shows up quietly, year after year, in a number you've felt your whole life but maybe never questioned. Prices go up. They always go up now. That wasn't always true. It only became a law of nature the day the gold ran out. The day money started obeying us instead of disciplining us. Which leaves one last question, the one hiding underneath all of this. We just watched money get cut loose from gold, backed by nothing you can hold, created now out of thin air. But that raises something even stranger. If a government can conjure money from nothing, who actually makes it? Not the mint, not a printing press. The real answer is hiding inside an ordinary bank, and almost nobody is taught how it works. So next, we follow a single dollar all the way back to the moment it's born. How is money actually created? If you like this one, hit like and subscribe. Got a topic you want us to break down? Drop it in the comments. We're here to answer the simple question behind everything. Why money?